Good afternoon and welcome to Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I am here, your host with our co-host Tucker Maxwell. Who am I? My name is Dan Edwards, managing broker of the Seattle Real Estate team, and I am coming to you live from Seattle. And I'm here, like I said, with my co-host. I guess I should have written this down. I'm a little rusty. Forgive me. Tucker, welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Dan.
I think we both failed on the Seahawks attire since it is a playoff weekend. We neither one. I mean, you've got blue on. I've got blue.
Yeah, we're close.
Close. All right.
We're not wearing red.
Go Hawks. Yeah, we're not wearing red. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not whiners. We're not the 40 whiners.
That's right.
So today's episode, please like, subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Google Podcasts. They don't do those anymore. It's Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So you can subscribe and listen to our opining about the real estate musings here in the greater Seattle area. So today we're going to talk about seller walkthroughs and sub 6% interest rates. The market is kind of coming back. So let's talk about seller walkthroughs.
Yeah. So Dan, why is a seller walkthrough before a listing so critical in today's market? And what problems does it help prevent once the home does, in fact, go live?
Yeah, Tucker. So seller walkthroughs is essentially that idea that we're going to look at the house. A professional real estate agent is going to look at the house through the eyes of a buyer. And I've been doing real estate for about 20 years, and no, it's never too early to do a seller walkthrough. And what that is me coming to the house, or an agent coming to your house, and basically looking at the whole big picture. There are five major things that a listing agent will look at. The first one is going to be the envelope, the outside exterior. The second one is going to be the roof. The next is going to be the electrical, the plumbing, and let's see, there's one more, five things: electrical, plumbing, envelope. I feel like I should have that one. It'll come to me. But the whole idea here is to make sure that these systems are in good working order. We're not inspectors. We're not doing that. But it can bring to our attention things that we need to do. The home inspection is a whole nother conversation. I won't even go into that. But we're going through the house and we're looking at it through the eyes of a buyer. And in many cases, sellers aren't really ready, but it's going to allow us to identify items that may take more time to get ready. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So what are the most common issues you spot during these walkthroughs that the sellers kind of overlook?
I would say first and foremost, it's really hearing the seller and seeing the house through the eyes of the seller, and understanding kind of some of the things that we wouldn't see that we need to accentuate. So a good example of that would be when the windows were replaced. So, a buyer walking through a house is going to see, windows that look like windows, right? They have no idea. But knowing that those vinyl windows were replaced, 3 years ago, and they come with a 10-year warranty, is something that the seller is going to let us know. And we're going to take notes. We're going to put that down. Probably the most common thing that we see are maybe potential remodel mistakes that we can quickly fix. And here's, this kind of goes deep into real estate lore, but there's a thing called functional obsolescence. Functional obsolescence is the idea that you have designed something functionally that doesn't flow for everybody. Sometimes I will see a split level where they have remodeled the kitchen in a way that closes off the kitchen. Oftentimes it's the other way around. Some of the 1970s split levels, the kitchen is closed off, and today we live in a world where we want it open or flowing to maybe the dining room or maybe to the living room. So another way would be, how can we bring some more natural light into it? So we're thinking, as a real estate professional, like, what are the small things that don't cost a lot of money that can have big impact? For example, if that kitchen is closed off, we can maybe cut a window, and I don't mean literally a window, but an opening between the kitchen that kind of brings that in. Another, probably the most common, is, what's that smell? Right? So most people are kind of used to kind of a smell that they have in their house, and maybe neutral to it. And it could be nothing. It could just be just a dog maybe that's been there for a long time that they just don't notice. And so obviously that stays ingrained in the carpet. So it may be time to replace carpet. So essentially, what we're really doing with the seller walkthrough is to determine where we need to put any budget that we have for getting the home ready.
Gotcha. So these are probably things that buyers probably recognize right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. What we're doing, like I said, is we're seeing that home through the eyes of a buyer. And again, no, it's never too early because I have people that maybe plan on staying through the end of the school year, but it can allow them a honeydew list over the next few months to get the home ready and put it in its best light. The other side of the seller walkthrough is sometimes people don't want to go through the hassle of putting all this stuff together. And it may be that that real estate agent has somebody specifically in mind that might be a perfect fit. So they don't have to do all of those things. So, yeah, so it definitely is something that I would highly encourage um, sellers to reach out, contact a professional, and have them do a walkthrough.
Very good. Is there a cost associated with this?
Nope. Nope, that's free. Now, when we get to the inspection, and I will say common issues is I can look at a hot water tank and I can look at a furnace and I can look at the date that it was installed. And I can tell you that if it was 10 plus years, the home inspector is going to tell you that that's near end of life. So that's not me inspecting it to say it is or it isn't. I've seen a forced air furnace go for 20 years. So just because it says that doesn't mean they aren't, because they can be maintained. But the cost of a agent coming shouldn't cost you anything, and it also gives them plenty of time to pay attention a little bit more to what might be happening specifically in that neighborhood. So,
Uh, Very
yeah.
good.
Okay, so let's talk about interest rates. So we are sub six, and what does the return of those sub six interest rates? What does that mean? What does it signal about the confidence in the market right now?
Yeah, so Dan, it's a very good question. And what's really nice about being sub six is it removes that like psychological barrier. It seems to be a threshold for buyers where they regain confidence, they come off the fence, and restart conversations with us.
Yeah. So and you saw that this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at, as soon as they marketed it, everyone said it, rates are below six. Like our phone started ringing, application counts, quickly picked up. We've since seen some volatility in the rates. So, it's bounced since then. But yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase in buyer activity all of a sudden.
Wow. Okay. Great. So for buyers who have been waiting on the sidelines, how does that interest rate shift or change their affordability decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. It allows buyers to afford more home for the same payment. So that's the nice thing is now they can maybe step up into that next price point that they might have been waiting for. It may allow them to buy the same home at a more comfortable payment. So maybe it just gets them more likely to make an offer. So we do anticipate that it's going to, increase buyer demand, and thus we should see buyer activity in the form of offers.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm definitely noticing is inventory is starting to come off the market. We're seeing more and more of what's the word I'm looking for? There is obviously inventory growing, days on market growing. That's what we talked about the 1st of January. So as inventory is growing and days on market growing, you're having a little bit more aggressive buyers, and you're having sellers offer concessions and builders offer concessions. Are we going to see less of that in the season as we go forward because there are more buyers?
Absolutely. I mean, conversations today are around the review dates. That's something that we haven't even seen for a while, and just this week we're already seeing that properties that came on the market either late last week or so far this week are showing review dates of next week. So that's something that we haven't had to deal with, but now we have to prepare buyers to what that means and the potential for multiple offers and how you compete in a multiple offer situation.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke with buyers this fall, and they were kind of just sitting on their hands, looking at the opportunities that they had, and we're like, well, you know, Christmas is right around the corner. We're going to just relax. And now they're going to be thrust into a market, and they're going to go, wait, what happened? Why are we competing again? What advice do you have for somebody that's shopping, you know, uh, or lenders to work with, like yourself, as how you can help them stay competitive as the market shifts to a more competitive market.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, all lenders ask you, and all real estate agents want them to get pre-approved. So that's a known thing. But it goes beyond that. How quickly can the lender close? Oftentimes, what's most important to sellers is how quickly they can get their proceeds in their hands, so they can go off and do what's next. So closing time frame. What's a typical closing time frame, and how quickly can you close? The other thing is there's contingencies, or I get out of jail free cards, if you will, within purchase contracts that allow you to get out of a transaction. And in a multiple offer situation, those are the first things to go. We have to make our offers look like cash, and that we're going to buy this home regardless. And so, working with a lender that's going to explain those contingencies from a finance contingency and appraisal contingency standpoint, to know, am I super solid, and am I okay waiving these contingencies, and what risk am I taking on? And asking a lender, what do you do to help in this situation? Is there any guarantee of earnest money? If I give you all of my application docs, credit reports, are you going to walk this with me? And if I'm trusting you, lender, and your pre-approval, will you reimburse me if you messed up, if I lose my earnest money and you can't fund my loan? So really it has to do, there's 5 main contingencies. We don't like, dealing with the inspection contingency. We'll leave that to you, Dan. But the inspection, or the finance and appraisal contingency, is very much a lender driven contingency.
Right. So if you have somebody that is really well qualified, you, I think everybody taking chances on a contract is really up to them. I offer up the risks and everything like that. But there are times where you can look at them and say, we're good. We have a great confidence in our pre-approval letter that you can go ahead and waive your financing contingency.
Absolutely. And we even guarantee that earnest money and lost cost of moving fees, U-Haul trucks, like
everything goes sideways. Yeah.
We'll put our money where our mouth is. And if you trusted us, we require you to go through underwriting and issue a fully underwritten pre-approval. And when we do so, we're willing to guarantee that earnest money, so you can waive financing confidently, knowing that if we messed up, we'll reimburse you. Now, what that doesn't cover is, call it 2 or 3 weeks of the contract. If you lose your job and it's no fault to us, like, there is a little bit of risk there that we have to talk about. But we should be evaluating, especially if there's 2 borrowers on the application.
I can tell you though, if they lose their job and they can't get financing, I can get their earnest money back.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but most people are just trying to do fair. They're trying to not hold somebody to account for, execution of the contract. I'm not saying it's not a risk. I'm just saying that a lot of times cooler heads prevail.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I had an example of this week. And what's important is to know, like, what happens if that happens? Can we increase our down payment and still qualify? Can we qualify off of one borrower's income versus both the incomes? Like, let's look into that and just kind of know what would we do in that situation.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Anything else?
Well, back to sellers. So flipping it back to sellers. How should sellers adjust their expectations and strategies as buyers re-engage and re-enter the market due to these lower interest rates?
Yeah, I think cautious optimism is the term that I would, let sellers know. Is, we're not flipping to a full on, hair on fire seller's market. And I think that, a wait and see approach for right now. And tonight, I was talking to a couple of colleagues, and they were advising their sellers to kind of maybe wait a little bit so some of this surplus inventory would come off. And then the last 2 weeks, we saw some of that surplus inventory come off. So what that means is, yeah, there's more buyers hitting the market. But again, how long does that last, right? Because January and February are going to have a bump because November and December had less. But how long does that push last for? And I think a lot of that is a wait and see. So my advice to sellers is to do everything you can to be the belle of the ball, to be the shiniest penny, the best looking house on in your block and on your neighborhood, and everything else will work out from there.
I love that. That's a great analogy. Belle of the ball.
Belle of the ball. That's a Southern term, because they had balls in the South. I don't know that we have balls up here. Do we have any? We have
I think we have
galas,
galas. Yes.
galas,
Yes,
tomato,
sir.
tomato. We have galas in the north and balls in the south.
Yep.
Or I like shiniest penny. Shiny
Mhm.
penny.
Yep.
Just
When it
the
goes
best.
right in line with my analogy of a pre-approval letter, I say that's the ticket to the dance.
That's a ticket to the dance, and you want to be the prettiest girl at the dance. So all of the analogies, but basically, come to market looking as best as you possibly can. Eliminate any items out there, and know that there's more buyers out there now. So yeah, definitely is going to be I think a much better market this year than last year, and we never did go back. We should go back and review our predictions to see if we're any good, because then
Good
that
paper,
would I
yes.
would justify or right. Oh, don't worry
Exactly.
about it. We're good at what we do. All right. So you're watching the Seahawks. Are you going down to the game, or where are you watching the Seahawks?
I'm not. I am actually. I have a colleague
Wait.
in from Maine, Portland,
Mhm.
Maine, and we are
Hmm.
actually going to go to Crystal. We're going to get some spring skiing in January, and we're going to
Hmm.
watch it from Crystal Mountain.
Okay. So you're going to go skiing instead of watching the game. No, the skiing should be actually pretty decent. Is Crystal got a lot of snow?
They do, but I believe it's supposed to heat up to about 45 degrees at Crystal. So it's going to be
What the heck?
spring conditions in February, or excuse me, mid January. So wild.
Mid-Jan. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild. Well, have fun with that. Go Hawks. I've
Are
got a
you going to
watch
the game?
party. Yeah,
Watch.
no, I'm not going to the game, but I've got a watch party. I think we're going to be at Elysian Fields watching. So we'll hear the game
There
while
you
we're
go.
watching it. So yeah.
Very
All
good.
right. Well, hey, thanks so much, Tucker. Yeah, I appreciate you. And we'll see you next week
Thanks, Dan.
in the stream here, just like this.